Good morning to you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers.
Right, first let's talk about the Ministerial Handbook. What is it? Is this the book that guides ministers about how to spend money?
It's the book that guides ministers as to what they're entitled to in terms of the cars they can purchase, the places where they can live, primarily the kind of a subsidy from government.
Now, just in terms of the move to adapt or change it, from the answers of Minister PADAYACHIE last week, what have you been able to glean? What are some of the things that have been changed? What has been retained?
I do think that generally they are trying to make sure that there is some modesty and a reduction on the amounts which were spent in terms of where the ministers could stay or the cars that they could purchase, and many other rights that are linked to the ministers given the current economic climate. But also they want to have a stricter approach because the intervals were so big that many of the ministers or their officials would go for the maximum. For example, 70% of the annual salary package of a minister could be used to purchase a car for free. In other words, the state would foot the bill. So now they are trying to make sure that that is reduced, and they are also looking at the question of ministers who hire cars or stay in hotels which are quite expensive, even though some of them may have houses provided by Public Works Department.
Okay, so just from the answers last week, yes, you're saying that perhaps an element of humility is being brought into this equation. So where can ministers stay? I mean, does it say what kind of suburb or the nature of the house a minister can occupy?
In fact, the government already have buildings in all the major cities like your Cape Town and Pretoria, where the seat of government and parliament is. So it's not a matter of them choosing the suburbs, but it's a matter of making sure that the system is efficient enough that a person doesn't stay in a hotel saying that the house doesn't have furniture for a year, or the house doesn't have certain features, or some ministers fighting for the properties which have the best view to the sea or the larger houses. So it's trying to tighten those loose aspects which may have been open to abuse.
Now, recommendations revealed last week include that ministerial car allowances be reduced from the current 75 to 60% of the executive's annual salary. That's less than what is the situation right now. Is that a reasonable downscale in your view?
I don't think it is a reasonable downscale because it's merely marginal. Remember that we are going through difficulties in terms of economy, unemployment, inequality, poverty levels being very high. And if you compare us with the other emerging markets like India, you'll find that they use very modest means of transport, even if they are ministers, even though their economies are many times larger than ours. And the time when there was a shopping spree for the luxury cars was the time when recession was coming in. So it's a matter of compassion and sensitivity to the economic situation.
All right. Just finally, Minister PADAYACHIE was quoted as saying, it's not something we should be ashamed of. We have to get people to understand that you are executives entrusted with the responsibility of running a country. You must be entitled to certain privileges which are above the norm that ordinary folk would have access to. Is that a fair statement to be making in a society as unequal as ours is right now?
Well, it would be a fair comment in a normal situation, but remember that between the time when there was a promise to review this ministerial handbook and now, you have many ministers who have since been reported to have abused this particular privilege. So there seemingly is a tendency to go for the maximum rather than the minimum to send the right message to the public out there.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Somadoda Fikeni.